One wet and rainy day, James was pulling a long line of coal trucks to the docks. The day's events had not been good for the red engine. First, his fire had been slow to start, making him late for his first passenger train. Then he soon found that Percy was busy at the harbor, so he had to collect his train of coal trucks from the coal mines. Then, to make matters worse, there were no other engines to arrange the train for him, so James had to do it all by himself, angrily bumping the trucks as he did so. James hated working with dirty, dusty coal, especially in rainy weather. More often than not, shunting coal trucks in the rain made his paintwork very dirty, and it would take the workmen hours to clean him. Needless to say, he was eager to get his delivery done so he could get a washdown. Come on, he barked at the trucks. I've got more important things to do than pull you silly things all day. This made the trucks cross. They were already annoyed with the way James had treated them, but now they were determined to pay him out. Soon James was puffing up Gordon's Hill. He should have been paying attention, but he wasn't. He was too busy thinking about having a nice long washdown. By the time he reached the top, he remembered where he was, but by then it was too late. On! Cried the trucks, and they surged forward, pushing him down the hill. His driver applied the brakes, but the rain made the rails slippery and his wheels couldn't grip. Help! James cried, but there was nothing he could do. As he reached the bottom of the hill, he saw a sharp bend up ahead. James shut his eyes as his crew jumped clear. There was a loud crash as James toppled off the rails and onto his side. Coal flew everywhere. When the dust settled, James was covered from smoke box to cab. My shining red paint, he wailed, but his despair was drowned out by the laughter of the trucks behind him. Soon, Thomas arrived with the breakdown train and put James back on the rails. The fat controller was on board, and he was most displeased. You must learn to control your temper, James, he boomed. Otherwise, this could have been avoided. Now you will need to go to the works, and I must borrow another engine from the mainland to do your jobs. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, James replied meekly. A few days later, the new engine arrived. He was an electric diesel, simply named E.D. He was fast, shiny, and very reliable, handling James's trains with immense ease. The trucks would rattle smoothly behind him, and the passengers all marveled at his efficiency, calling him Super E.D. Even the fat controller was impressed, and decided to trial him on the express, much to Gordon's chagrin. I'm sorry to say this quickly went to E.D.'s radiator, and he became very boastful and conceited. The fat controller likes me because I'm a modern diesel, he would brag to the steam engines. Unlike all of you dirty, smoky claptraps, I run on good, clean electricity. Quickly, the engines grew annoyed with E.D.'s boasting. When James eventually returned from the works, they refused to let him into the shed. You can sleep outside with that electric menace, they huffed. It's your fault he's here in the first place. So James had to stay in the yard next to E.D., who spent all night boasting and bragging about his superiority. James barely listened. He felt guilty for his actions that led to E.D.'s arrival. The next day, James was at the station waiting for his next train. Dark storm clouds hung in the sky, and the distant rumble of thunder could be heard. Soon E.D. backed down onto the express, grinning smugly. You best be careful today, James warned. I imagine your engine wouldn't take too well to being hit by lightning. Stuff and nonsense, E.D. huffed. Unlike you rust buckets, I'm not afraid of a little rain. That's why they call me Super E.D. James was about to retort, when suddenly, as if by magic, lightning struck his front bumper and zinged onto E.D. Oh, help! He wailed, as his engine coughed and spluttered violently. Black smoke began pouring out of his vents and into the station, making the passengers cough and splutter too. The station master had come out of his office to see what the commotion was. "Get rid of that diesel," he bellowed to James. "I can't have all this smoke clogging up my station." So James shunted E.D. back to the yards and then took the express onwards. Later, the Fat Controller spoke to E.D. "You're a hard worker, E.D., he began, "but your attitude leaves a lot to be desired. I have heard from several workmen and drivers about how you've been rude to the other engines." E.D. said nothing. "On my railway," continued the Fat Controller, "all of my engines are really useful, whether they are steam, diesel, or electric. If you can't realize that, then I can't trust you to work on my railway. You shall return to the mainland as soon as I can arrange it." "Yes, sir," said E.D. weakly. He certainly didn't feel super anymore. In the end, Boko took the damaged E.D. away on his midnight goods. He would be repaired, but he wouldn't run the same again. James was led back into the sheds as the other engines heard about what he had inadvertently did. "It's good to have you back, James," said Gordon. "I knew that you were a splendid engine, but I didn't think it was that shocking." And all the engines laughed, including James, who now knew not to rush his work just to stay clean.